Good day, everyone, and welcome to the EDC's earnings call on its first half 2017 financial and operating results conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Mr. Ryan Velasco. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to EDC's conference call to discuss the financial and operating results for the first half of 2017. As a reminder, materials for today's presentation will also be posted in the IR page of the company's website. We have likewise subscribed to the back of this call from our service providers. The corresponding passcodes will be made available only upon request by all concerned from EDC's Investor Relations team. Before handing the floor over to the next speaker, I would like to remind everyone that comments made for today's call may include forward-looking statements that are based on current expectations and as such are subject to a variety of risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to materially differ from current expectations. Participating in this call today are the following: Mr. Nestor Batay, our Chief Financial Officer; Mr. Erwin Avante, our Head of Corporate Finance; Mr. Boy Resio, our Head of Investor Relations; Mr. Irene Itoses, our Head of Central Maintenance of Generation and Engineering Group; and Mr. Kenneth Balabo from the group's Marketing Department. I will now turn the floor over to Mr. Nestor Batay for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon to everyone. For the first half of 2017, there were four significant factors that affected the company's financial results. First is the 4% increase in revenues of 742 million, brought about by the improvement in energy sales volume of our Unified Leyte, our Burgos Wind, and Bacman units. Our performance was also boosted by higher average tariffs brought about by the increased proportion of contracted capacities, thereby reducing the plant's exposure to the volatile spot market. Second, we posted a 3.8% increase in operating expenses, primarily due to higher well workover and depreciation costs during this period, but was partly offset by lower steam field O&M and admin costs. Third is the lower net interest expense by 9% or 196 million. This is a result of the company's debt management program, particularly on refinancing or replacement of our loans to take advantage of the prevailing low interest rates in the market. And lastly was the early redemption of the US dollar bonds, where the premium paid and unamortized debt issues amounted to $17 million. If you recall, we recently did a tender offer for a portion of our 300 million 6.5% bond that is due on 2021. The accepted offers of about 70 million incurred a loss of 402 million pesos pertaining to the premium paid amounting to 385 million and an amortized portion of our debt issue cost of about 17 million. This program not only reduced our FX exposure and refinancing risk, but also extended the maturity from its remaining life of 4 years to 10 and 15 years. Please note that we will be giving an update on the impact of the July 6 Leyte earthquake and our restoration activities later in the presentation. The figures in the next few slides are all as of June 30. Let me turn over the floor now to Boy Resio to discuss the company's financial results in greater detail.
Thank you, Mr. Batay. Slide 6 summarizes the company's financial performance for the first half of 2017. Major drivers of the individual accounts will be discussed separately in the succeeding slides. Our core net income, or RNIA, stood at 5.18 billion, up 11% from the first half of the previous year, primarily due to higher revenues and lower interest expense. Consolidated revenues reached 17.7 billion, EBITDA margin increased subsequently to 64% from the prior year's 62%, driven mainly by higher tariffs for the current period. Meanwhile, net income stood at 4.8 billion, down by 8% due to higher OPEX, forex losses, and early redemption of the US dollar-denominated bonds. Foreign exchange losses amounting to 228 million net during the same period in 2016 was mainly brought about by the depreciation of the Philippine peso against the US dollar for the quarter ended June 30, 2017. Slide 7. Consolidated revenues was up 4.4% from the 17 billion in the first half of 2016 to 17.7 billion in 2017, mainly due to the following. 1. Higher generation volumes were reported by the company's Burgos Wind Farm, Unified Leyte, and Bacman Geothermal Power Plants. Burgos was up 40% as we experienced better wind factors during the first quarter of 2017. On the other hand, Bacman and Unified Leyte increased by 32 and 23% respectively for the first two quarters of 2017. Higher average tariffs were reported from most of the plants. From Bacman, this resulted from a higher level of contracted capacity and contributed approximately 350 million increase in revenue. The average tariff from our Unified Leyte and Mindanao plants also increased as per the escalation mechanism embedded into their respective power purchase agreements. The contribution from this was estimated at approximately 400 million pesos. The increases cushioned the decline in sales volume from Palimpinon and Nasulu geothermal plants, mainly due to the curtailment in the Visayas region from Tongonan Geothermal due to the retrofit of units 1 and 2, and from First Gen Hydro, mainly due to lower ancillary services. Slide 8. Operating expenses for the given period increased by 4% or 348 million because of the following contributors. 622 million increase in purchase services and utilities, rental taxes, insurance due to higher number of wells worked over, and O&M costs during the period. Depreciation expense increased by 182 million, resulting largely from changes effected in the depreciable life of certain components belonging to the Burgos Wind and the Bacman Geothermal Inc. assets following a decomponentization exercise. These were further offset by a 550 million reduction in personnel costs and lower SCRS expenses. Slide 9. In the following slides, I will be discussing the performance of each plant in the portfolio. The first of the plants is Unified Leyte. Operations of the company's Leyte geothermal plants was disrupted last July 6 by a magnitude 6.5 earthquake that struck the island of Leyte. Prior to this, revenues from Unified Leyte reached 5.9 billion during the first two quarters of 2017. This is 23% higher than the 4.7 billion the previous year, as higher tariff and higher sales volume contributed to the growth. Consequently, net income increased by 37% or 517 million despite higher forex losses and income tax. We will be giving further an update on the impact of the earthquake and our restoration activities later in the presentation. Slide 10 on the Palimpinon plant. On Palimpinon, its revenues declined by 314 million due to a 11% reduction in sales volume despite higher average tariffs being realized. The volume drop for the first half of the year was primarily due to the oversupply in the grid. Consensus is that the situation is expected to correct itself with the completion of NGCP's Cebu-Negros Panay transmission line upgrade by about 2021. In the interim, we are looking at mitigating this downside risk by entering into additional power sales agreement and an ancillary services agreement with the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines for our Negros plant. Slide 11, Nasulu. On slide 11, our Nasulu plant's revenues was affected by the partial curtailment of its output, together with some preventive maintenance activities done in the first semester of 2017. Moving forward, entering into an agreement with NGCP for ancillary services should mitigate the impact of this downside risk. Meanwhile, average tariff has remained at 3 pesos and 4 centavos per about 3 pesos or 4 centavos per kilowatt hour, following new contracts being consummated for the plant at the start of 2017. Slide 10. Slide 12. Slide 12 is about our Tongonan plant. Revenues were down by 285 million, mainly due to lower sales volume despite higher average tariffs being realized. The volume drop resulted from ongoing works to retrofit units 1 and 2 early in the year. Average prices increased due to higher replacement power gains. In spite of this, net income still registered a 9.7 reduction due mainly to lower revenues, higher depreciation expense, and higher forex losses than that of the previous period. Slide 13. Slide 13 is on our Bacman plant. Higher energy sales and higher average tariff from higher contracted capacity from the Bacman plant raised revenues by 32% or 521 million. The increase in revenues were offset by higher OPEX from the plant PMS of Unit 1, lower proceeds from insurance claims for the period, and forex losses resulted to an operating income of only 92 million. Mindanao, slide 14. On slide 14 for Mindanao, revenues increased by 35 million or 3% due to higher tariff despite lower sales volume, realized on account of a preventive maintenance program on Unit 1 early this year. Net income declined by 137 million as major PMS on Mindanao 1 conducted during this period brought up expenses, which was partially offset by lower interest expense for the period. Slide 15 is on Unified Leyte ULGEI. On slide 15, it shows the performance of the UL strips of energy. Net loss was contained at 254 million or a 10% improvement over that of the previous period, largely due to higher average tariff being realized from new contracts. This has enabled ULGEI to reduce its reliance to the spot market. Slide 16, FG Hydro. FG Hydro's lower net income was mainly due to lower revenues from ancillary services, partly offset by the lower income tax. Weak revenues were also attributed to lower average tariff from the expiration of the contract for NICO 2 Area 2. ASPA contracts are already being put in place to lessen the business unit's exposure to the electricity spot market. Slide 17, Burgos Wind. Results of our Burgos Wind Farm yield 409 million in net income being reported, together with a 40% increase in revenues. This was largely due to better wind regimes encountered during the first quarter of 2017 as compared to that of the same period in 2016. OPEX was higher by about 90 million, largely due for O&M and certain typhoon-related repair expenses. The resulting net income was reported at 306 million for the first half of 2017 from the 8 million loss for the corresponding period the previous year. Solar, slide 18. Slide 18 summarizes the results of operations of our solar plant. On an entity level, net income marginally decreased in the first half of 2017 by 8.7%, despite a 10% increase in revenues, largely due to higher OPEX as maintenance fees for Burgos Solar 2 started only in May of 2016. Slide 19, recurring net income. Consolidated recurring net income increased by 7.7% or 386 million during the first half of 2017. The movement is as indicated in the slide. Higher recurring net income from the operations of Unified Leyte, Burgos Wind, and Bacman. This was partially offset from the lower contribution from plants such as Pantabangayan, Masiway, the Green Core plants, Palimpinon, and Tongonan. Slide 20 on cash balance. On cash flows, cash generated from operations during the first semester of 2017 ended at 10.92 billion. Net cash generated from operations amounted to 9.59 billion. Net loan drawdowns from various local banks amounted to 7.46 billion. The cash generated were used primarily for debt service, maintenance capex, and cash dividends. On liability management, slide 21. In the upper left chart, you will see that our debt stack has remained predominantly Philippine peso denominated, approximately at plus 60%, after successfully eliminating exposure to a third currency, which was the Japanese yen back in 2010. The bar chart on the lower part of the slide shows EDC's dollar P&L exposure. Following the tender for 300 million on the 300 million US dollar denominated bonds, our dollar denominated debt and expenses now totals to 420 million US dollars as compared to the 500 million US dollars back in 2016, roughly representing the amount of bonds bought back. The tender offer affords EDC the twofold advantage of not only reducing its FX exposure, but also partially addressing the refinancing risk of the chunky debt maturity come 2021. To cover the dollar-denominated obligations, EDC has dollar-linked revenues from our contracts, as well as offsetting exposure from the Burgos project, resulting to uncovered forex exposure of about $108 million. As compared to our presentation during the first quarter, the uncovered portion has grown from $80 million, largely due to the lower US dollar cash balance, lower US dollar linked revenues expected to be realized. The exposure that we are showing is only a translation risk, as our cash flow exposure in the upper right chart shows that we can cover our dollar-linked revenues through the years, except in 2021 as the US dollar-denominated bond matures. We intend to hedge the remaining approximately $100 million of uncovered exposure through the accumulation of cash in US dollars, the entering into different derivative products such as call spreads and cross-currency swaps. This is my last slide, slide 22, ratios. As for our consolidated financial ratios, current ratio, debt to equity, and net debt to EBITDA showed improvement following the partial settlement of the 3.5 billion peso bond in December of 2016, the higher reported earnings, lower remaining debt, and lower cash OPEX. I will now turn you over to the next set of speakers who will be providing you with other updates on the company.
Thank you, Boy. Good afternoon to all. I'm Irene Toses, and will update you on the return to service of the Leyte plant following the July 6 earthquake and the various reliability improvement work in progress. For slide 24, the Leyte facility was operating at 460 megawatt when the earthquake struck, causing all operating units to trip. All personnel had been accounted for, with few minor injuries reported. Upon clearing up landslides in various access roads, assessment of damages has ensued immediately, and effort has been poured on units that has minor damages. The first priority was to restore the Leyte marshalling station, which serves as a gateway to export power from the EDC power plants in Leyte to the grid to power up Leyte, Samar, and Bohol provinces, being our top priority. A number of circuit breakers, current transformers, and other ancillary switchyard equipment in marshalling station sustained serious damages. Assessment of each plant focusing on turbine generator condition and balance of plant has simultaneously took place and had been attended accordingly. And upon completing all tests for transformers and other electrical equipment and readiness of marshalling station, we began to operate Malitbog bottoming in July 12 or 6 days after the event, followed by Malitbog Unit 2, Malitbog Unit 1, Upper Mahiyaw Unit 2, Upper Mahiyaw Unit 1, Upper Mahiyaw Unit 4, Tongonon Unit 2, and Upper Mahiyaw Unit 3, such that by August 2, Leyte can deliver up to 311 megawatts. For the remaining units that incurred major damages, return to service program has been put in place. Switchyards of most facilities suffered various degrees of damages and had been partially repaired to export power, but the remaining switchyard equipment is being procured to fully restore these switchyards according to the return to service schedule.
For Tongonan Unit 1, the cooling tower was badly affected by the earthquake. It has been noticed that the structure has leaned towards Unit 2 cooling tower by about a foot, which will require massive structure replacement to straighten the entire cooling tower. Work is ongoing and the unit is expected to return to service by mid-September 2017. The turbine generator, which is under warranty following the retrofit, has been inspected by OEM and declared clear and okay for restart. We have similar case in Malitbog Unit 3 cooling tower. The work is ongoing and expected to be completed by mid-September 2017. The auxiliary transformer was affected by the earthquake and now undergoing repair. And the turbine generator was found in good condition after inspection. Same case in Mahanagdong Unit 1 cooling tower. The work is also ongoing and expected to be completed by the beginning of October 2017. Inspection and maintenance of turbine generator has been attended to determine if there's any adverse effect, since the facility has felt the strongest effect of the earthquake, as evident by the failure of Mahanagdong Unit 2 cooling tower and shifting of Unit 2 main transformer by around 18 inches from its original position. 2-cell of a 7-cell Mahanagdong Unit 2 cooling tower has collapsed. An evident cooling tower basin crack will require major repair. EDC plans to replace the entire cooling tower with better material like FRP or fiber reinforced plastic, and the basin area is being surveyed for suitability to reinstate. If the affected basin is found to be in good condition and no void underneath, we expect the unit to return to service by December 2017. For Mahanagdong Unit 3, the cooling tower has minimal damage, but part of the switchyard station was badly affected by the landslide. A third-party geotechnical and electrical experts had been deployed to assess the extent of the damage and to recommend options to reinstate the switchyard station, both interim and long-term. Return to service is projected in April 2018, but contingent to the result of the geotechnical investigation which is still going on. In general, we are exerting all efforts to bring back the units to service as soon as we can, but there are some factors that can affect the schedule, like procurement and delivery of procured materials and some unforeseen issues that may crop up during the course of repair. Slide 25. This up various reliability improvement works in progress does not yet consider unplanned outages resulting from the July 6 earthquake. Stats covering the affected later generating units are expected to materially differ going forward. However, the target reliability of less than 5% UOF remains the same in the long term. During the last earnings call, we reported on the significant improvement achieved on UOF for the main power plants included in the fleet-wide retrofit and rehabilitation effort. On this slide 25, you can see how we have correspondingly profiled the different power plants according to age versus the reported unplanned outage factor as of June 2017. As mentioned earlier, the general objective is to move each of the plants into the lower left-hand corner of the chart, where the unplanned outage factor is low and the asset life is reset to early stage. The resetting of the life cycle clock is achieved by investing CapEx and doing life cycle extension initiatives to retrofit and rehabilitation works. EDC remains committed to reining in the unplanned outage factor of all units to less than 5%, or as we can also say that we're targeting for a minimum of 5% reliability. Visiting the discussion to units with the UOF in excess of 5% from left to right, we have Tongonan Unit 1, Mindanao 1, the Leyte Optimization Plant, and Upper Mahia 1. Tongonan Unit 1 UF has gone down to 20.44 from 40.3 during last quarter as it continued to operate reliably since it returned to service following the retrofit. While our O&M continues to resolve all remaining teething issues. However, as I will describe in succeeding slides, we are expecting the UF to shoot up again after the unit was affected by July 6 earthquake. We also registered lower UF of 6.3 for Mindanao 1 as it continues to perform following the major maintenance in January, February of 2017, wherein we replaced the generator stator. The 50.1 megawatt Leyte optimization plants consists of a number of small power plants rated to 4 to 5 megawatt each, with the exception of the 16 megawatt Malitbog bottoming cycle power plant. For greater impact, the focus was initially for the plants with larger single unit as in the case of previously discussed Tongonan and Mindanao power plants. The UOF of 61.03 continued to slide while waiting for the long lead time components. Lastly, Upper Mahia UF is improving at 9.29 after replacing Unit 4 steam turbine rotor in March 18. The next unit that will undergo turbine rotor replacement is Unit 1, scheduled in October 2017. The new rotor is already on site. The next slide is slide 26. Again, for reliability improvement. In the late 2016, we've already completed the first of the 4 20 megawatt steam turbine units of Upper Mahia, with a complete new steam path, new rotor and diaphragm, of improved metallurgy by using 12% chrome turbine rotor. The second brand new rotor was successfully installed during the first quarter of 2017. We'll continue with the third rotor in October 2017 and the fourth one in first quarter of 2018. The next plant is the 112.5 megawatt Tongonan power plant. We are currently on planned outage during retrofit for the last of the 3 units. The slight delay brought by the July 6th earthquake has been able to recover while the whole facility were thoroughly inspected before resuming retrofit works. As part of our drive to bring down the Opti unit UOF at 5% level, focus is on resetting service life of these smaller turbine units, and orders have already been made for new rotors and diaphragm for both the Maanagdong and Tongonan tapping cycles. The brand new components are to be in country by second quarter of 2018. In the interim, we have sent the existing rotors of the 2 plants for repair, which we expect to be recommissioned by December for Tongonan first unit, January 2018 for the second unit. The third unit only requires minor repair, and as soon as we fix the substation affected by the earthquake, the unit can be returned to service. For one of the Mahanagdong's 2 tapping units, it will be returned in November 2017. And lastly, for Malitbog bottoming, the manufacturing of brand new turbine rotor is on track to be delivered in second quarter of 2018 and shall be installed during the next major outage. Slide 27 shows the project timeline of Tongonan retrofit and control system integration, or CSI project. The retrofit of Unit 1 was completed in February and has been operating normally since March. Following the July 6 earthquake, Unit 1 has to be placed on unplanned outage to inspect the turbine generator and to repair damage to each cooling tower. Unit 2 retrofit works has been completed last June 27 and is operating reliably. And Unit 3 is undergoing retrofit and CSI work that is scheduled to be completed by end of August, to be followed by a 30-day reliability run.
For the contracted capacity of Bacman and Nasulo, for the Bacman, the contracted capacity is expected to increase by 8 megawatts by third quarter. This is mainly due to the two power supply agreements with two electric cooperatives in Luzon. The total megawatt is 8 megawatts. Nasulo contracted capacity will also increase by 20 megawatts, mainly due to ancillary service power agreement. Both contracts will minimize the exposure of both plants due to low spot market price.
For updates on the ancillary service procurement agreement efforts of EDC, the hearing of ERC for the ASPA of EDC Nasulo was completed last July 6. Next step is the issuance of provisional approval from ERC, which is expected by end of third quarter 2017. Additional update on ASPA is that Greencore has also completed its ERC hearing last July 7. This is for the ancillary service procurement agreement of Palimpinon 2 in Negros. Expectations in terms of the timeline for the provisional approval of ERC will also be on end of third quarter 2017. Our hydro plant, Pantabangan, will target to have a filing with ERC for its ancillary service procurement agreement by end of this week. We're targeting that a provisional approval will be achieved by end of 2017.
Okay. Slide 29 relates to the voluntary tender offer notice that EDC received last August 3. So to recall, a consortium that will be made up of the Macquarie Infrastructure Real Assets and an affiliate of GIC, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Singapore, has offered to purchase up to 31.7% of EDC shares in the open market. The tender offer price was set at 7.25 pesos per share. The window for the tender offer officially started last August 10 and will be open until 12 p.m. on September 18. First Gen, our parent company, has expressed their intention to participate for 10.6% of their stake, which is equivalent to 1.98 billion common shares. Please note that even if the 10.6% was tendered, First Gen and the Lopez Group will continue to remain as the controlling shareholders of EDC. The bidder has also mentioned that there is a minimum number of shares that needs to be tendered, which is 6.6 billion, and they are willing to purchase up to 8.9 billion common shares of EDC. In the event of an oversubscription, there will be a scale back amongst all the shareholders, including First Gen. So all shareholders, retail, institutional, and First Gen, will be treated similarly. We also note that as per the pronouncements of First Gen and the bidder, they have made it known that they have an intention to eventually delist EDC from the Philippine Stock Exchange. The terms and the conditions will be defined at a later stage. That's the last slide that we have for this presentation. We now open the floors for any questions.
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing *1 on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Again, please press star one to ask a question. We will now pause for one moment to allow everyone to signal. And we can now take our first question from Aaron Oy from RCBC. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Congratulations on your results. Hello?
Yeah, we are here.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please go ahead.
May I inquire if there are covenants which needs to be addressed following following the partial sale of stake by FGen for EDC's existing bondholders agreements?
Sorry, you're asking if there are existing covenants to be followed?
Covenant,
Is it?
yes, or existing covenants to be addressed following the partial sale of stake.
Yeah, there are none. There are none that are tripped, if that's your question.
Okay, so there are no
There's just for the the closest one is a change of control provision, but in this particular case, there's no change of control, and therefore no covenant that is tripped or consent needed from the lenders.
Okay, thank you.
Again, if you would like to ask a question today, please press star one. We have no further questions in the queue at this time. If you would like to ask a question, please press star one. And we can now take our next question from Angelo Natividad from Abacus. Please go ahead.
Hi, just a quick question. What will happen if the 6.6 minimum requirement for the tender offer won't be reached? Will the deal be called off, or?
Yeah. If I understand your question correctly, you're asking what if the minimum 6.6 billion target by the bidder won't be reached? Our understanding of the tender offer document is that it's actually a requirement to reach that minimum. So if that minimum is not reached, then our understanding of the tender offer document is that the bidder may decide not to proceed with the tender.
Okay, that's all.
Again, if you would like to ask a question today, please signal by pressing star one. We have no further questions in the queue at this time.
Okay. With that, we thank everyone for joining the call. As a reminder, so as we mentioned earlier, the materials for today's presentation will also be posted in the investor relations page of our website. We've also subscribed to a playback option for this call, and the corresponding passcodes will be made available upon request with the investor relations team of EDC. So once again, thank you everyone.
This concludes today's conference call. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.